Welcome to the podcast, Archie. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well. So I like to start these things. If you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Where have you been professionally before your current venture?
Yeah, so I work for a family office investing in tech and real estate. Grew up in Australia, moved to the US about 3.5 years ago to start Cogni. We graduated from Barclays Techstars, and we recently closed our Series A. That is where we are at the moment.
Now, it's funny because one of our co-founders is also Australian, Peter. So we have an Australian connection at our company as well. In terms of becoming a founder, did you always see yourself eventually getting to the point of starting your own company, or did you find this issue in the market that you wanted to solve and kind of fell into, all right, no one else is doing it, let me and my co-founders do it?
I think it's a combination of both, right? The first combination is that, hey, I want to be independent. I want to have creative ownership on what I wanted to do. And the second thing is there a need in society that where you could, take your passion and see if you can execute on that need. So it's a combination of both. So for me, when I started Cogni, I wanted to build a banking platform that resonated with me growing up, right? It was just not a bank account that I hold deposits and use my debit card to swipe, but how could it be a lot more relevant to the needs of my time, in the sense that I travel a lot. I like to experience new things, but I'm not buying a mortgage. I'm not using any of the financial products. I'm living hand to mouth growing up. How can I build a platform that's a lot more lifestyle focused, but still provide the basic banking services? So that's how the whole idea of Cogni started. And when I found the need that I could actually make an impact, and it's possible to make an impact, that's when I jumped on it. But
now, before jumping into a bit more about Cogni, where did I always like to ask, where'd the name come from?
The Cogni,
Yeah.
I felt that we're moving away from an information age to a knowledge-based age, right? The internet age has been information. We Google everything and we get information, and everyone's overloaded with information. And I think that we're moving away from an information age to a cognitive age where, knowledge is wealth, right? So if you can, you read the whole newspaper, that's information. But if you can condense all that information to something that is relevant to your personal needs, or a stock market insight in 2 lines, that's knowledge. So I felt that we're moving towards that space, and that's how Cogni as a name came up for a cognitive era.
Now, who you mentioned a little bit about who you guys are focused on, exactly who's the target customer, and what are the range of services that you guys offer?
So our target customers are within the age group of 18 to 35, but we really want to cater for them. The reason why we want to cater for them is they are at that particular age. You are looking at more lifestyle experiences. You're looking at where you can optimize your budget, where you can get maximum value for your dollar spent. You're looking at good deals. At the same time, you're looking at a good access points to events, etc. So that's how that's the target market, and that's the specificity on which the platform has been built on. As far as to where we are right now to do all that stuff that we talked about, the baseline has to be strong. So it comes from the bank, being a banking platform. So that's what we launched. And two other functionalities that we launched along with the banking platform is more like carbon emissions, because as carbon emissions is a very important. The Earth's temperature is looking to go up by a few degrees in the next 10 years. And if there's something that we could do that could for a banking platform side, if we could enable consumers to know what the carbon emissions on every single transaction is going to be. So we built that functionality as well. So Cogni became the first platform where you can actually look at carbon emissions on every single transaction that you make. Our goal is not to direct them into a certain area, but to give them information so they can make informed decisions. The other functionality that we launched was digital gift cards. We spend a lot of money on, we always like a good deal. So we partnered with about over 1,000 brands where we can give anywhere between 6 to 12% on gift cards from, Saks to Southwest Airlines to Delta. So, you could actually send that gift card to anyone who doesn't even have a Cogni account, and it goes into your Apple Wallet straight away. So we built those two functionalities. We built the basic personal financial tool. We built a single-use cards because, this was a personal pain point for me, because I used to try all these subscriptions, and before you know it, you get charged for it.
Yep.
So we built that functionality out as well. And what we're really excited about right now is, blockchain has been evolving for some time. And in last year, when I was attending NFT New York, I saw that a mainstream audience were getting involved in it. And obviously that was happening through NFTs. And I felt, hey, this is a great lifestyle opportunity that people want to get involved and they're excited about. And how could we provide that services on a digital banking ecosystem? So we started really working towards that. So we're using the basic banking as a platform, and then we're building additional services that really resonates with people's lifestyles.
And in terms of the user, are there fees with any of the services? How do you guys make money? Is it on interchange? If I'm a user, do I have to worry about costs like that in terms of subscription fees or cost to open up accounts?
No, our basic bank account is 100% free. You have access to 55,000 free ATMs. You can, deposit checks. You could deposit cash in one of our cash locations across the United States. We also launched in Puerto Rico as well, because we felt a lot of cross-border transaction was happening. So you can use Cogni to Cogni Pay. So it's free to use, easy to onboard. Less than 2 minutes, you get a bank account and a debit card sent to you. But we are also working on functionalities that are a little bit more premium in nature, that allows you to build credit, look at your credit score as well. So by end of next month, when you get a bank account, you also get a non-custodian wallet attached to your bank account. So you don't have to download multiple wallets and try to figure out how you're going to move money from your bank account to your wallet and vice versa. So our goal is to give a wallet to everyone, a non-custodial wallet to everyone that gets a bank account with Cogni.
Is there a concern with the focus on 18 to 35 that a user will eventually age out at when they get to a certain, maybe it's time, all right, I'm doing less traveling, I have a stable job wherever I might live, I've started a family, and the lifestyle aspects of what you guys have built might not apply as much as, say, when they were a bit younger?
So 100% true. Your needs change very drastically, but you might not be spending as much, or you might not be traveling as much, but your lifestyle is a part of you. The way you live your life is part of you, right? So we're not saying today that we're going to be building mortgages and stuff, but you still like to go and get good deals. You still like to have access to certain stuff. So those premium functionalities will come and play, where you would still be able to access those lifestyle services. And that is a niche area that we want to really focus on. It's like using Paytm in India or Kakao. While it started as a messaging tool, but Kakao is also a payment application in Korea, where you still use them for your lifestyle services.
You mentioned
you don't buy mortgages out of Kakao or Paytm, but you still use them to do other things.
That's true. You mentioned blockchain and obviously the non-custodial wallet. There's clearly been a huge shift the last few years in the crypto Web3 space. In your estimation, where do you think the technology is today? And are there certain impediments as to where it is today that might impact how quickly it's adopted more widely, either by TradFi or traditional fintech?
I mean, Todd, as you know, in the last 6, 7 years, it started as people just really working on infrastructure on a blockchain, and now in the 6 years or so, we have seen, especially in the last 3 years, we have seen a lot of consumer adoption happening, like play to pay, games, NFTs, collectibles, uh, etc. has become a lot more mainstream. It's because the blockchains have become a lot more cheaper. And obviously, we are talking about metaverse. Obviously, for metaverse, you need a good VR goggle, and a lot of innovation happening into that space. It's about an entire ecosystem that surrounds with the blockchain concept. And as blockchain as a layer one gets cheaper and cheaper, other auxiliary services are being built on top of it to make sure that, from a consumer perspective, that you're creating new business models, you're creating a much larger digital experience, and then you can access or experience things that is outside of your physical world, as you're starting to spend a lot more time with the digital ecosystem. So this is a completely evolving ecosystem, but that fundamental concept is very, very interesting, for the whole fact that you could be a creator and you could actually maximize your benefit as a creator.
Do you think that, and I always wonder this when talking to those that are building and or connected to Web3, building in Web3, the ultimate end consumer, those that maybe aren't crypto enthusiasts or aren't living and breathing in fintech today, like you and I are, do you think they ultimately care if banking and financial services are built on the blockchain versus the spaghetti that it's built on today? I think they'll care if it's cheaper, but does it matter that much to the end consumer?
No, it does not matter to an end consumer, right? We need to make sure that the experience is as simple as, I mean, it's to people, whether you had a touch pad on your phone or whether now you're using touchscreen on an iPhone, people are just able to use it.
Yeah.
It was never the technology is more as a utility layer that can enable people's life than people are worried about the technology itself. So if this can give new business models that they could actually benefit from, opens up a new business opportunity for them personally, yes, they'd be interested. The second thing is its speed, convenience, and usability. So those are the three things that even at Cogni that we are really focused on, is that, okay, we need to go get a wallet, right? So it takes so much time, so much effort to read, understand, comprehend all these jargons. But when you're getting a bank account, and if we can give a non-custodial wallet attached to a bank account, great. Is there some kind of an educational layer that has to happen between custodial and what is non-custodial? I think in the last few months we have seen a couple of exchanges and Web3 companies go down, without having to name ones, who have been using custodial wallets, right? And they were able to use the custodial wallets and take the tokens and use it for investments and leveraging without consent of the consumer who actually owns them. So the only educational part would be that in a non-custodial wallet, that you tend to own the tokens, and as a financial platform, that we will not be able to access that, and you'll have full authority on how you are going to do that. So there's an educational component to it, but besides that, the usability of it, I get a free wallet, and you have some tokens already on there, then it makes it a lot more easier. So that's how we see this whole ecosystem evolving. Then the technology is an underlying layer that people within fintech really care about. But from a user perspective, it's about the usability, and how simple can it be, and if there's a new business model that they could use that they can benefit from.
I see that on your website, and doing a little research for this episode, that you work with Community Federal Savings Bank. Was there any reticence on their part with the crypto Web3 connection that you guys have? I'm always curious to understand kind of how TradFi and traditional banks are thinking of the space. And I don't know if they had any reticence in working with you, because of that.
I mean, it's a steep learning curve for everybody as well. It's an educational component, and CFSB has to, they are a regulated entity. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that, we update them and communicate with them what this product is and how it's going to affect the consumers, because fundamentally the deposits are being held with CFSB. And so for us, we've been communicating with them to see how this product is going to work, and whether the customer funds are safe and they're having full understanding as to what they're getting into. So it is an evolving process. So it's a continuous discussion, and how consumers are going to be using the product. So from our side, we have taken a lot of compliant steps, and not from a disclosure standpoint, but also and making sure that the customer's data and the funds are protected in its format. I mean, if you're going to be a custodial wallet, then you have to go through a lot more regulatory thing. If you're non-custodial, well, obviously the 2FA is very important, right? We're also putting in place that, when you make a transaction, there is another form of authorization that has to go through before you can send your tokens to someone else.
Speaking of wallet, and you mentioned obviously the FDIC insurance with your bank partner. Do you think sometime in the future FDIC insurance becomes less of a deal breaker for consumers as they begin to adopt some of these various wallets and have an understanding of maybe how the different wallets work and FDIC insurance works, and they begin to get more into the nomenclature of what Web3 and crypto and they can own and control themselves? Do you think FDIC insurance becomes as important today as it has always been in the next few years?
See, everyone likes an insurance. They always like to be having some insurance, some kind of a backfall, and that's how human tendency works. And I feel that having an FDIC insurance in place for banks, is it being relevant? I think it is 100% relevant, because there's a check and balance. As much as I'm a big believer of free markets and open innovation, but there should be checks and balances when it comes to consumer dollars, because the consumers are not always all the time up to date on what is really happening. Because in a country where a lot of people have make less salary, they trust their banks. Do they love the banks? I mean, that's another conversation altogether. But do they trust the banks? Yes, they trust the banks, right? Why do they trust the banks? Because it's FDIC, because they trust the government. So that trust factor is a very important component, and I think that FDIC should be here to stay, and I think it is a bit of a comfort level.
Since you've launched Cogni, what's been the biggest lesson that you've learned about your own company?
I mean, when we were first starting up as a digital bank, I mean, we launched during COVID, and we went through a bit of up and down during that period. So the most important thing for us during that point of time was, to survive through this phase. And we had to kind of like move some of our plans down the track, because when you're first starting up, your goal is to have enough cash to go raise your Series A, but then you have to kind of like figure out, are you going to build or raise, and those kind of stuff were a thing. The second thing that is for our personally within ourselves, but one thing that we really focused on is phenomenal customer service. We built our customer service from ground up, which is based in Long Island. We have a very solid team that is running it.
That's where I live.
Sorry?
That's where I live, in Long Island. Yep.
Yeah, gotcha. So we have an office up there, and we didn't outsource our customer service. We wanted to bring it in-house, and we wanted to see how is that we could really service our consumers. Whether are we going to look at when we launch crypto doesn't have really good customer service right now.
Yeah.
And we are working with the team to see how we could address some of those concerns as well, and also any kind of a lifestyle services that we offer in the future. So the customer service will evolve into a community ecosystem, plus a concierge kind of a service. So that's my vision for customer service. So customers need somebody to talk to, right? Always sending a ticket up, or sending a message and waiting for it. They like a reassurance voice that, hey, I gotcha, right? So that is fundamentally been very important to us and to me personally. So we focused on those things.
The best piece of advice you received, either from a fellow team member, investor?
Fellow team members always, when you're growing as a startup, right? You're focused on raising capital. You're focused on launching the next product and all that hustles. But sometimes as a founder, you sometimes need to tell the team how much you care about them and how much you value their work. As a founder, that is something I've always, when you go, you expect everybody to know everything is going great. So that communication is very important. Even though, as a founder, you might realize that everything is okay. Things cannot be okay, right? And everyone has their own requirements. So as a founder, that was something that I learned. It's still, everything is a learning process as an entrepreneur, right? So that is one. And from my investors, it's always been like, don't die, survive. Eventually the macros will change to benefit you, right? Many times founders give up very quickly. Some people don't, and they survive to tell a good story of a great business they built. And macro always changes. And the most important thing with the macro is you just have to survive, and the macro will just come and benefit you, and situations will happen that benefits your business. And firsthand, we had seen that with Cogni. And that's been very helpful, and it was an advice given to me by a lot of my investors.
Tell us a little bit more about the team. How many people are on the team, types of people around you, who are helping you build Cogni today?
So when we started as a seed company, when I moved to the US, the team was reasonably very new. Some of them stayed behind. Some of them moved to different companies. But where we are right now today, we have brought in some really good, talented people, like our VP of Finance, who came from Morgan Stanley, who had taken a couple of companies public. His experience was very, very important as we set out a very strong financial infrastructure in place, accountability, financial process within the business, as we are a Series A company and looking at going to a Series B very soon. But a very strong engineering hire, my VP of Engineering, Sudhir. He came in during our COVID time and helped stabilize the business and build that infrastructure that can look at scale. So having a very strong relationship with our leadership team is very, very important. We also brought in recently our new head of Web3, Simon Grenfeld. He joined us about a few months ago. I'm very excited to work with him. That he's not only passionate about the Web3, he also understands compliance and regulatory component to it. We brought a new general counsel from Fintech, which is really helpful for us right now as we're trying to maneuver into some of those compliance spaces as well. And obviously some of my customer service team who have taken the recent leadership role within our customer service. So it's overall surrounded myself with really good people with really good talent. And as the company evolves, your scope of work that they have to do and the experience that they have is also going to be important. So we always kept the highest role as a lead or a VP than a C title, right? So that's how it's been.
You mentioned the seed, the seed capital, the outside investment that you've received so far. You mentioned going from a Series A to Series B. How was the fundraising process? What'd you learn about yourself, the company in that process? How was investor appetite for what you guys are building?
Yeah, sure. Seed is different from Series A to Series B. Seed and to some extent, Series A is totally dependent on who you are as a founder. Investment money is coming into you, and then from a Series B point of view, it's always data in numbers. It's going to determine how and at what valuation you're going to raise your Series B, and also the execution component that comes with it. Right, as founders, you do have lofty goals, and you should have very lofty goals. It also has to combine yourself with some element of execution and some level of data that kind of like matches that, and you have a triage between those things. and obviously the macro market opportunity that exists. So for me, it has always been, going through that process has been very interesting, because seed investors have different requirements from a Series A investor to a strategic investor who comes in because as a business, you could provide a lot more value to them.
Mm-hmm.
And we always picked up investors who are going to be a lot more relevant to us, who are going to be helpful to us, and that we have an access to as well. And all our investors have been great so far.
In terms of if another founder found this episode and listened to it, what would be one piece of advice that you'd offer them if they were just starting their company?
One piece of advice, a lot of advices that I can actually offer them, but I'm trying to figure out which one should I pick. I mean, one piece of advice is, being an entrepreneur and being a CEO is two different things, right? You are an entrepreneur, you're hustling, you're trying to build a company, you're trying to sell your vision, you're a salesman at start because you don't have numbers to prove your thesis, right? And being a CEO is an entirely different thing. Being a CEO is managing people, having a much stronger discipline, focus, execution. So know your strengths and weaknesses and complement your weaknesses with the leadership team that could add much significant value. That is the advice that I would give.
One follow-up to that, where, obviously each company is different, but for you guys, where do you felt it started to change, where it goes from, hustle founders to, all right, I need to hire some professional people? You mentioned the Morgan Stanley and some others. It obviously it hits a point where it's like, all right, we need to make some certain key hires that make us look like a more professional, put together executive team versus, 2 or 3 founders really, really hustling.
I mean, domain knowledge is important for anyone. That's no compromise there. But for example, you might have your, starting up, you might have your sister as your accountant to help with the books, or your friend to help with the books. But then when you move to a Series A, when you have to go through audits and financial modeling, and you need to be thinking ahead and saying, okay, this is the time that I got to transition to somebody that has a lot of experience who can help grow the business, right? And it's a trade-off between cost, both whether monetary wise or securities wise, right? You'll have to triage that and figure out what's relevant for you. And for us, it was always a combination of cash in your bank, people with passion, and people who believe in your passion. So it's a triage work between that. I mean, during the whole course of time, I can tell that I've not always been 100% successful in triaging very well, but sometimes I've always done well. Sometimes I haven't done very well.
Yeah.
So it's just a learning process. It's the skills that you learn that you don't have to go to an MBA for.
So we have just a couple of minutes left, so I like to end these episodes a little bit lighter. Do you have a favorite book and the last book that you read?
The last book that I read, what was the last book I read? I mean, I've been reading a lot of magazines lately.
Okay.
I've been reading a lot of books on metaverse and how things could evolve in the metaverse. But one book that really resonated with me was Principles from Ray Dalio. I keep rereading that again and again because I really enjoy the way that Ray talks about how do you add value to society, and how how can you make an impact to society, and how can you do well by solving problems in society, and what are the principles that help you get there. So that's been, I love reading the book again and again. So I read it again 2 months ago. So it's one of my favorite books. Yeah.
As a founder, obviously you're very busy. But what do you do to step away and kind of unwind and shut your brain off for a little bit?
So I think this because Cogni, I'm really focused a lot on the lifestyle services ecosystem, not
Mm-hmm.
just pure bank accounts. So I distract myself by trying to engage a little bit more on and what's happening in that space, trying to experience new things, whether it's going to be with NFTs or some of the new technologies that is coming in metaverse. It's always been very exciting for me. I also like space. Uh,
Okay.
so been like making friends with a lot of people who have been involved in space, whether VC funds or founders who've been innovating in space. So that gives me a bit of a downtime. And I'm going to Burning Man for the first time after
There
6
you
years.
go.
People have been should go, so that's a bit of a downtime for me this year. So I'm very excited about. Yeah.
Do you watch sports? Do you have a favorite team or teams that you root for?
I was born in India. I grew up in Australia, so I like cricket. I like rugby. It's a good fair sport of mine. In the US, when I first moved to New York, lived there, I started liking all of my New York teams, the Yankees. You see a lot of Yankee hats in my office. Uh, there are some Mets hats too.
Okay. Just making sure
Uh,
you got the Mets represented because I'm a Mets fan.
Yeah, yeah, they wouldn't just because, it's like myself and a couple of my leadership guys, we always wear the Yankees hat, and we had some of those new hires. They really made sure that they wear the Mets hat at the office. so, so yeah, it's I think sports can bring a lot of people together,
Mhm.
and it's kind of it's good for team building. So I really like that baseball themed office at Cogni, and we all have this fun banter back and forth. So I'm really excited about it. We also like playing chess within our
Okay.
office, so we want to make it much more of a tradition in Cogni. So it was started by my head of Web3, and I like playing chess as well. So that's another. I wouldn't say it as a sport. It's a bit of it's a fun, challenging experience.
But it certainly plays into the cognitive angle for sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite vacation spot?
Since I've been here in the United States, I feel my vacation is now going back to Australia on the Gold Coast where I'm from. But other places, I like culture. I like anthropology. I was always been very passionate about anthropology. So for me, a vacation spot has always been, places with deep culture and people. I think some of the places that I really like going is be Dublin. I like Irish people a lot. I love the Irish culture of you go to a bar and nobody knows anybody. You come out making friends with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I like Korea. I like Seoul because they've had a huge impact in the culture globally. You don't have to speak Korean. Things with K-pop or technology and the history of the Koreans has been like I've been very passionate about that, and I love going to Seoul all the time. And I like going to Budapest as well. So it's my three of my favorite spots.
And then final question, biggest inspiration in life.
My biggest inspiration in life, I think all entrepreneurs have been a great inspiration for me. Um, whether it's Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, I'm talking about innovators in my era that
Mhm.
who I can hold up. I'm talking about not their personal opinions or beliefs or anything like that, but purely a role model as an entrepreneur that you can overcome all adversities that you have and you believe in your passion and then you can be successful, right? So this is very much focused on their ability to overcome odds and their ability to fight adverse situations, uh, believe and execute when a lot of people didn't believe in their vision and stuff. So they all are my inspirations, and I think all entrepreneurs, listening to their war stories have always inspired me to do better. What would somebody do if they were in my place? It gives you the strength because it's very, very lonely at the top, and the biggest
Yep.
inspiration that you can get is from reading their stories, and that kind of like inspires you to do better, right? So that's where I find my inspiration.
Well, Archie, I appreciate you coming on the show and giving me a few minutes of your time. If someone wanted to reach out, not only to you, but find Cogni, where can they find you? Where can they reach out?
Yeah, so my Twitter is Arch, RVARCH, RIV. And my email is archie@getcogni.com. So we'll respond to that. So yeah, I'll be happy to learn more. And we are hiring, and if there are good talent across product engineering or design, we'd be always happy to have a chat with them. And if they want to just have a chat, is there any way that I could help or assist or provide any feedback? I'll be happy to do that as well. So those two ways are the best way to reach me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. Continued success to you and the team, and hopefully we'll get you back sometime in the future.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate your time, Todd. You have a good day.